Cartel de Sinaloa has weathered a lot of storms in the past, but the recent attacks have proven unbearable, forcing the removal of major players in its hierarchy. From the king himself, El Chapo, to his wife, Emma Coronel, to his most ruthless son, Ovidio Guzman, among the final players left is Ovidio's wife, Adriana Meza Torres, rumored to be the new queen of the Sinaloa cartel.
When we see drug lords with their wives or girlfriends, we tend to assume they're innocent bystanders. Guess again. Some women in the narco world are so ruthless, they are orchestrating the demise of the most notorious kingpins, only to take their place at the top of the pyramid. Enter Adriana Meza Torres, the wife of El Chapo's son, Ovidio Guzman. According to recent reports, Adriana is quickly and brutally climbing the ranks of the Sinaloa cartel, using her husband's 2023 arrest to her advantage. Let's explore the full story of Adriana Torres, her beginnings, her rise to power, and all the dark rumors about the queen of the Sinaloa cartel. Cartel royalty. Adriana Meza Torres didn't just marry into cartel royalty, she was born into it. Adriana was born sometime in the mid-1990s to parents Ada Elizabeth Torres Felix and Raul Meza Ontiveros. Raul was known as M6, and he was a notorious colonel in the Sinaloa cartel. Today, this is still Mexico's most powerful cartel and biggest narcotics trafficker into the U.S. Adriana's uncles, Javier Torres Felix, aka LJT, and Manuel Torres Felix, aka M1, were no different. They worked for the feared Ismael Zambada Garcia, or El Mayo. For those of you who don't know, El Mayo and El Chapo used to be best buddies in the 1980s, working together for El Padrino's Guadalajara cartel, the first modern-day cartel. After El Padrino's arrest in 1989, the Guadalajara crumbled, and El Mayo and El Chapo started their little separate cartel together. It was called the Sinaloa. So yeah, Adriana was born into cartel royalty, and her family had ties to one of the cartel's two kingpins. Soon, she would have ties to the other kingpin too. You guessed, El Chapo. When she was still a teenager, Adriana started dating one of El Chapo's four most trusted sons, Ovidio. It wasn't long until they were married, but you could say that's a cultural thing in the world of cartel royalty. After all, if you get married, your claim to the throne is more valid in case something bad happens to your loved one. And in the dog-eat-dog world of Mexican cartels, something bad will happen to your loved one. In 2007, Adriana's father, M6, was gunned down by authorities in Jalisco. 5 years later, Javier was arrested for homicide, illegal use of firearms, and organized crime. Months later, Manuel was killed in a police shootout. Then her little brother, El Mini, 6, was killed in a similar shootout after flashing his gun and lethally shooting a police officer. He was only 18, but he'd been dubbed the Sinaloa cartel's youngest assassin. He already had a plethora of murder charges on his record. So, although heartbroken, Adriana realized the fate of her family was inevitable. And in 2017, Ovidio's father, El Chapo, was extradited to the United States for just about 1 million crimes. Well, it had been a long time coming for El Chapo. In 2016, he was arrested for the third time after escaping from prison in Mexico twice. He was sent to the U.S.'s highest security prison, the Florence Supermax. It's highly unlikely El Chapo will ever walk free again. Others were not so lucky. Many kingpins get killed in broad daylight by authorities, simple karma for the many murders they've committed. And as of 2023, his son Ovidio is also in prison.
Ovidio Guzman emerged as a leader in the Sinaloa cartel, one of the world's foremost narcotics groups, after his father's arrest in 2016. He was briefly detained in 2019, but at the time hundreds of cartel henchmen overwhelmed security forces in pitched street battles in Culiacan.
Ovidio Guzman was first arrested in 2019, but his brother, Ivan, and his Sinaloa cartel army rained hell on the officers, killing dozens and intimidating Mexico's president into releasing Ovidio. In January 2023, the Mexican military raided Ovidio's house again and arrested him for good.
The detainee was transferred from the place of his arrest to Mexico City in an Air Force aircraft. Army and National Guard personnel continue to assist the civil authorities in restoring public order and the rule of law.
Well, they had a lot of work to do. As a sign of protest, the Sinaloa cartel army set fire to vehicles, invaded the local airport, shot at innocent people, and blocked intersections for hours. Again, people died. Heartbreakingly, the violence never stops. And this time, the cartel didn't get what it wanted. Ovidio is awaiting to be extradited to the U.S. to face the same fate as his notorious father. So yeah, maybe Adriana was right in marrying Ovidio. Los Chapitos. Los Chapitos means the little Chapos. In other words, El Chapo's children. Joaquin, Ovidio, Ivan Archibaldo, and Jesus Alfredo were left in charge of the Sinaloa cartel after El Chapo was arrested in 2016. But with Ovidio behind bars, his wife Adriana is said to have replaced him inside the cartel. From the outside, Adriana and Ovidio had a lovely, tightly knit family. The couple had 3 daughters, and they spent their free time together whenever they could. But business has always been a priority for both of them. And to the Sinaloa cartel leaders, business means war. Well, when the police arrested El Chapo in 2016, the DEA was very thorough when researching his network. All of his network. So they started with his family. First came his sons, Los Chapitos, and his wife, Emma Coronel Asturo.
The first lady of the Sinaloa cartel, Emma Coronel, also became a notable person of interest, as well as one other figure, Ishmael El Mayo Zambada.
But the authorities also noticed Adriana Mesa Torres. During El Chapo's 2017 trial, it became official that Adriana was the daughter of M6, one of El Mayo's most trusted lieutenants. That, paired with her romantic relationship with Ovidio, led the government to freeze her bank accounts. Adriana was declared a person of interest and investigated for money laundering. Basically, the DEA suspected her of diverting illicit money to other sources or spending blood money for a lavish lifestyle. Soon enough, they discovered they were right. On paper, all Adriana had was an agriculture business. But then, why did she have a luxury villa, luxury cars, hyper-expensive jewelry, and an everyday lavish lifestyle? The more information the DEA dug up on her, the more they exposed her as a Sinaloa cartel leader. The Financial Intelligence Unit of the Ministry of Finance and Public Credit, SHCP, has pointed to the woman as an alleged lender for the Los Chapitos organization, especially for the activities of Jesus Alfredo and Ivan Archibaldo Guzman Salazar, as well as Ovidio and Jesus Guzman Lopez. So not only is she a part of Los Chapitos, she seems to be in charge of their money. However, the Financial Intelligence Unit couldn't find enough evidence to convict her at the time. In 2019, Adriana was once again put in the spotlight after Ovidio's bloody arrest and release, but she maintained her innocence vehemently and escaped the Financial Intelligence Unit for a second time. So far, Adriana's defense team has managed to keep her out of jail, claiming there's no evidence to support the claim that she is tied to the Sinaloa cartel. It's a miracle this defense still stands, but at the moment, the prosecution is working hard to arrest Adriana for good. El Mayo. Here's an interesting catch. Now that El Chapo is in prison with a life sentence, his cartel passes down to his most trusted servants. But there isn't just one king or queen pin. On the other hand, there's Los Chapitos, El Chapo's sons, and, as of late, some of their wives. But on the other hand, there's El Mayo. After all, he was there alongside El Chapo from the very beginning. In fact, during his trial, El Chapo even claimed El Mayo had always been pulling the ropes. and that he is just as responsible as El Chapo for all the crimes of the Sinaloa cartel. Whether he was just trying to throw his friend under the bus to save himself, or El Mayo has really been ruling the cartel from the shadows, we'll never know. But what's clear is that the elusive El Mayo has a staggering $15 million reward on his head, while Los Chapitos each have a $5 million bounty. Where does Adriana fall into this? Well, she has a great advantage because she's friends with both sides. All of these people are now dead, so that leaves her among El Mayo's most trusted servants. Also, he's her godfather. So it's safe to say Adriana is playing both sides. And yes, these are sides, as El Mayo and Los Chapitos aren't happily sharing the Sinaloa crown. As always, when a big leader dies, the cartel splits into tinier, warring factions. It's unknown just how violent these two factions get against one another. But no matter how it all turns out, Adriana can just pick the winning side. No wonder she's referred to as the Queen of the Sinaloa cartel. It takes a particularly ruthless mind to serve both sides and pick the winner. And with her husband in prison, Adriana can do as she pleases. At least for now. Before El Raton's arrest in 2023, the tensions between him and the Zambada clan were steadily growing. It all escalated on October 17, 2019, after the military's failed attempt to catch Ovidio. It went so wrong that it's still remembered today as Black Thursday.
This was a failed operation by the Mexican National Guard to capture Ovidio Guzman Lopez.
Before raiding Ovidio's house, the officers tried to arrest his brother Joaquin, but he engaged in a shootout and escaped from his home. While on the run, he phoned Ovidio and let him know the military would be coming for him.
A large convoy of vehicles drove up to Ovidio Guzman Lopez's house in Culiacan based on an extradition warrant from a U.S. judge. The National Guard succeeded in infiltrating his property and capturing Ovidio, but quickly found themselves surrounded by cartel enforcers.
So Ovidio called his big brother, Ivan, and they sicked their whole Sinaloa army on the Mexican army. In fact, Ovidio gave the go-ahead to shoot any officer on sight. It was total bloodshed. Officers, civilians, and Sinaloa sicarios lost their lives in one of the government's most damaging arrest attempts. Military officers were kidnapped, prisons were taken hostage, and prisoners were released onto the streets.
Many government buildings, like prisons, were taken hostage, releasing important cartel members, setting vehicles on fire, and shutting down airports and important intersections.
The event was particularly damaging as the president was intimidated into releasing Ovidio. Back to El Mayo. El Mayo is the last fugitive on Mexico's 37 most wanted drug lords list that is alive and well. How did he achieve this? By staying stealthy and avoiding violence until the last possible minute. That's right, he disagrees with Los Chapitos' ways of bombing and killing their way out of trouble. So El Mayo wasn't happy with the way they handled Ovidio's arrest attempt. But there's an even more interesting twist to this conflict. There were claims that El Mayo and his Zambada clan leaked information to the government, sending them Los Chapitos' way. These were never officially proven, but you can imagine what this did to the relationship between the two factions. And after Ovidio's successful arrest in January 2023, the Zambada clan moved forward, attacking Los Chapitos and their family members. One day, Ovidio and Adriana were having lunch at the Cheesecake Factory while Ovidio was waiting for his trial. Two Sinaloa hitmen tried to take both their lives. Both escaped. Now, Ovidio awaits his extradition to the U.S., and Adriana has been unofficially crowned the Queen of the Sinaloa cartel. It's unknown what her relationship is with El Mayo these days. After all, it was his men that tried to take her and her husband's lives. But El Mayo is reported to be suffering from diabetes, and aged 75, he might not be around for much longer. However, Adriana learned something from him: to stay in the shadows. Unlike El Chapo's wife, Emma Coronel, who has been flashing her riches so hard she's been named the Kardashian of the Sinaloa, Adriana does not reveal herself to social media. Will she stand by Ovidio's side during his trial, maintaining his innocence and insisting she was completely blind to all of his hideous crimes? Or will she enjoy his imprisonment and use this to her advantage, securing the queenpin role in Los Chapitos and finally in the Sinaloa Cartel? What do you guys think? What is the future of the Sinaloa Cartel, and what role will Adriana play in it? Let us know in a thoughtful comment and make sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.